Do not put your kids on payroll until you do these 3 things first. That's because if you skip them, you may end up making more of a mess for yourself and potentially losing out on important tax benefits. Following these important steps could be the difference between smart tax strategy and it not working for you at all. I'll show you what I mean later in this video. Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Trull, CPA and financial educator, and here on this channel, I love bringing you all the things you need to stay informed, organized, and profitable in your business finances. So if that sounds good to you, make sure to like and please subscribe. If you do watch this channel, you know that I love the strategy of paying your kids, not just because I think it is a great tax strategy, which it is, but also because of the fact that it can be a great way to teach your kids important life lessons and skills and to set them up for their future legacy. I've got tons of content related to the how and why of hiring your kids, but here in this video, I want to talk about the things you should make sure you do before you hire them. And to be honest, these are things that I see most business owners getting wrong, but that's not going to be you. But before we jump into the things that you need to do before you hire your kids, I want to remind you of why this matters. Why is this a good tax strategy in general? Because that is going to help inform you as to why it's important to do these things that I'm about to talk about. Now, the main way that hiring your kids helps to save on taxes is because you can shift income from a higher tax bracket, which is yours, to a lower tax bracket, or probably zero tax bracket, which is theirs. So that means that if you paid them $10,000, that $10,000, if left as profit in your business, would be taxed at your tax rate. Let's say that's 30%. So that'd mean you'd be paying $3,000 on that $10,000. Or if you pay it to them, then it's not going to be taxable. It'll be deductible to your business. And when you give it to them, they will probably be at a 0% tax rate, and therefore they will have no taxes to pay. So that allows you to keep the money in the family. And you might be wondering, what the heck is my kid gonna do with $10,000? They're only 9. And that's a great question, but there's lots of things that you can do with that. Depending on the kid's age, you can teach them how to manage their own money. You can open up a brokerage account like a Roth IRA for them, which I highly, highly recommend. Plus, you can also pay for things that relate to them with that money that you were already gonna pay for anyway. So for example, camp fees, activity fees, sports fees, right? Even private school are actually expenses that you can legally pay from that money that you pay them. So essentially, you're basically making those write-offs. And yes, it's totally legal, but you gotta do it right. And that takes me to the subject of this video, which is the 3 things you need to make sure that you're doing before you hire your kids. First and foremost, you need to make sure that you have a paper trail. This is critical. Often when I hear that people are paying their kids for things that they do in their business, they're maybe just handing them a 20 every once in a while for some things that they're doing for them. And this is not a great idea for 2 reasons. First, because you probably are not then writing this off as a business deduction at all. So you're not getting that credit for giving them that money. And even if you are taking that deduction and you're remembering to go write off the cash that you gave them to your business, you're not going to have any kind of documentation to prove that you actually paid them if and when the IRS comes a knockin'. And that is why I do not recommend that methodology. Instead, I want you to actually go and open up a bank account in their name. It's likely going to be a custodial bank account if they're under 18, which means you'll have access to it as well, but it will have their name on it. And you will be paying them for the work they do in your business directly into that bank account, preferably by direct deposit, which we'll talk about here in a bit. Now, this is so important because it shows custody of the money. And like I said, you can use the money in their account for anything that relates to them. Once that money goes there, it can be used for their own spending money. It can be used for things that you normally would pay for them anyway, that they'll instead pay for out of their bank account. Or you can use it to contribute money into a brokerage account like a Roth IRA in their name. The key is for that to be traceable. And if you ever are audited, you want to be able to show that yes, you gave that money to them and it was used for things related to them. We can't just give it to them and then take it right back. That's not going to count. If you're looking for a custodial bank account to open, you can start with your current bank and see if it's something that they offer. But I also have a banking platform that I recommend if you're looking for one. It's actually a banking platform that everybody in your family can have an account with. It's called Crew, and it's actually a banking platform that everyone in your family can have an account with. So I have an account with Crew as well, joint with my husband, and my son has one, and my daughter has one. And I'm actually able to direct deposit their paychecks directly into their accounts. And I gotta be honest, that's something that's actually pretty hard to find, especially for kids under the age of 14. So that was something that I really liked about Crew, along with the fact that you can actually separate money into different envelopes as well. So if you want to teach your kids how to set money aside for savings, how to set money aside for giving, things like that, it is a wonderful tool for doing that. And did I mention it's also a checking account that pays pretty decent interest, which is especially hard to find in a checking account. So that's another lesson that you can teach your kids. If they hold onto the cash, they're actually going to make more money while it sits there. If you're curious to know more about Crew, go to jamietrull.com/crew or use the QR code that is currently on your screen. And make sure to use this link because you do get a 0.5% APR boost for the first 3 months if you use my link. And I don't know about you, but I like free money. Now, once you have that bank account open, that's not the only thing you need to do. When we're talking about a paper trail, I also want you to make sure that you are doing a good job logging all the information related to how much you're paying them. Now, that can be done in a spreadsheet. That's what I use. I have a log where I actually log the dates and the things that my kids actually did in my business. Again, if you're ever audited, this is one thing that could be scrutinized, right? They want to make sure that these are arm's length transactions when you're paying your kids and that they're actually doing work. So if you have documentation of the work they actually did and how much you paid them, then that can be a really great support to show why these are real deductions that should be allowable. So before you hand them that $20 bill heading out the door, think about how you could do that in a more tax advantaged way. Now, the second thing that I want you to do is to actually give them a W-2. Now, remember, you give a W-2 to employees, not contractors. And the question that I get a lot is it better to hire them as a contractor than an employee? Won't I save money on taxes by hiring them as a contractor? Now, in a lot of cases, when you're hiring somebody else, it often does make sense, especially if you can justify it, to hire contractors instead of employees because you often do pay less in terms of employer taxes. However, when it comes to your kids, the opposite is actually true. And the reason is that kids under the age of 18 who are working for a business that is solely owned by a parent or both parents has some special tax exemptions that they can get. Namely, they are exempt from payroll taxes. So that means if your business is the right structure and you're doing this correctly and you pay them as an employee, they're not going to have any payroll taxes on that, and you're not going to have any employer payroll taxes on the money you pay them. Additionally, if you're paying them under the standard deduction, which is just over $16,000 in 2026, then they are likely going to have a 0% income tax rate as well. So that means no taxes at all if you're paying them as an employee. Now, contrasting that, if you actually pay them as a 1099 contractor, they will owe self-employment taxes of 15.3%, starting with the very first dollar earned. So they'll likely still be exempt from income tax, especially if you're paying them under that $16,000, but contractors do have to pay the 15.3% in self-employment taxes. And that right there is one of the main reasons you're gonna wanna hire them as an employee. The other reason that you wanna hire them as an employee is because if the Department of Labor comes and asks, it's pretty difficult to justify why, say, a 12-year-old is actually independent enough and has enough autonomy to be considered an independent contractor. So I highly recommend just hiring them as an employee and issuing them a W-2 that shows how much you paid them at the end of the year. Now, a lot of people ask me, do I really need to put them on a payroll service, especially considering they are exempt from all taxes? Again, if you set this up correctly, there won't be any taxes that they are supposed to pay. So do you really need a payroll service? And the answer really is, it depends. Personally, because I'm such a fan of that paper trail, I do put my kids on actual payroll. I want to show the IRS that I am paying them just like I would any other employee in my business. Now, that said, I tried to find the lowest cost payroll provider because I don't want to pay a lot just to pay my kids. So personally, if you're curious, I use Roll by ADP. And the reason that I do is because it's pretty low cost and I can do everything from my phone. If you want to check it out, go to jamietrull.com/ADP Roll or use the QR code on the screen. And as always, I have a great deal for those of you who are trying it out the first time. Right now, only with my link, you can get 3 months free and you can actually get payroll for under $30 a month, which is really hard to find. Now, whether it makes sense to put them on payroll or not depends on your specific situation and probably how much you plan to pay them, because paying them a couple $100s a year to do a little bit of work around your business is different than paying them, say, thousands of dollars or upwards of $10,000 in your business, in which case you might want to be a little bit more buttoned up in your documentation. All right, now on to the third thing you need to do before you hire your kids. This one I see people getting wrong all the time, and it is costing them lots and lots of money. This one specifically goes out to those of you who are my S corporations, my C corporations, or even my partnerships where maybe you have a partner that is someone who is not one of the parents of the child. In this case, you're probably used to this, but it gets a little bit more complicated for you. Now, it doesn't mean you can't hire your kids, you just want to do it a slightly different way. Now, the reason for that is because the exemption for payroll taxes when you pay your kids only applies to companies that are wholly owned by the parents and are structured and taxed as a sole proprietorship, which means you're filing a Schedule C. So that could be an LLC. Again, that could be a sole proprietorship. You need to be filing a Schedule C with your taxes, and therefore you can hire them directly to that business. However, if you have an S corporation, even if you are the sole owner of that S corporation and you are a parent, that exemption does not apply to you, and you would have to pay payroll taxes. So if you paid them $10,000 directly from your S corporation, you're going to have circa $1,500 in taxes that are going to be due. Half of that's going to be due from you as the employer, and the other half is going to be due from them. So what do you do if that's your scenario? Are you destined to have to pay more taxes if you hire them, or should you avoid hiring them altogether? Well, the answer is no. For you, you're going to want to use something called a family management company. Now, what is a family management company? Well, it's typically set up as a separate company from your S-corp or partnership, and that's the company that's actually going to be employing your kids. And that company should be set up as either an LLC owned directly by you or just a sole proprietorship owned directly by you. And that way, any amounts that that company pays your kids are going to be exempt from those employment taxes. Now, this is a fabulous strategy, but you do need to do it correctly. You need to have the substance to it. It needs to be a real entity type. You need to have the contracts. It needs to be legit. And it's probably not something that you want to DIY yourself. So I recommend talking to an accountant who is familiar with this strategy, or potentially to join my masterclass where I teach you more about it. I go through a lot more detail on how this works and the things to watch out for in that masterclass at jamietrull.com/masterclass. That's my Hiring Your Kids 101 masterclass that goes a lot more in depth than I can here today. Plus, you get some awesome free resources just for signing up. Now, as I'm recording this, summer is coming up, which means it's the perfect time to be looking at hiring your kids in your business and perhaps giving them something worthwhile to do rather than just staring at screens all summer. So if that sounds good to you, it might be time to check out some of these resources to make a plan for hiring your kids. And tell me below, are you hiring your kids and what are they going to do for you in your business? And I'll see you next time.